What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the 2006 mixtape by Young Buck. Basically, this project is called Welcome to the Trap House, and it came out in the summer of 2006. So with this project in particular, there were a series of 3 mixtapes that came out in 2006 to promote Buck the World from 2007, and one of which I've already particularly reviewed, and that was Chronic 2006. But Welcome to the Trap House was the second of which came out in August of 2006. There was a third mixtape. I don't really remember what that one's called. I could look it up, but this computer doesn't really have internet as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. So I'd have to say it's just the particular concept that there were 3 of them. I'm eventually going to get to the third one in the series of these, and I'm eventually going to get to the third one in the series of these soon enough. I'd have to suppose we're going to definitely get to some more Young Buck as far as that pitch kind of particularly happens with it. But I would have to say this is a pretty solitary type one. I'd have to suppose definitely appreciate this one quite a bit. I would definitely have to say it's a gangsta. This is a Gangsta Girls tape, so it was hosted by DJ Drama as far as that pitch kind of happens with it, and it's pretty much on par with Chronic 2006. That was a pretty heralded mixtape, I'd have to suppose. Definitely had some good concepts on there, but this is kind of more of like a compilation tape, I'd have to say, just because Young Buck is not featured on terribly many songs on here. He has like a group called like the 615 or some folks like that, some folks like High C and Lil Murder and some of those type ones. There's some folks like High C and Lil Murder and some of those type ones that are part of this group that show up on a number of songs on here. I remember them from the particular song Stomp That Snitch off of Chronic 2006, which was a freestyle rap to a Bone Crusher type song. Pretty good song, definitely recommend that one. That's on this particular album as well. It's on this particular mixtape as well, I'd have to say. It's basically called on this one, it's called I'm a G on here, so I would recommend checking out that particular song. But the thing about this particular project is just the fact that there are a few songs that were also on Chronic 2006. I mean, the fact that Young Buck dropped 3 mixtapes just within relative succession, the fact that Young Buck dropped 3 20-song mixtapes is pretty good within that particular pitch. So it's a pretty dope concept to get these in particular. But this is definitely like a pretty heralded one, and it lives up to the Gangsta Girls name as far as that particular pitch. It lives up to the Gangsta Girls name as far as that particular pitch kind of happens with it. There's definitely some quality stuff here. It's interesting to kind of get Young Buck and DJ Drama doing some stuff just within that pitch, because this is another quality Gangsta Girls tape and this is another quality Young Buck tape. It definitely works. It's not very G-Unit affiliated. You're not going to find Lloyd Banks on here. It does have Tony Ayo on here once, but apart from that, most of G-Unit's not really on here. It's just kind of the concept. 50 Cent only has like some background vocals on All By Myself, which was Do It Myself on like Chronic 2006, I'd have to say. But it's just kind of within the concept of just being able to suppose that there is some quality stuff on here. It's just too bad that none of these mixtapes had like a single or something. I do feel like some of these particular type ones are pretty dope to kind of get, but it's just kind of the concept that these are just more underground type ones. But the quality is definitely here. I would have to say there is some stuff to kind of get to. I would have to suppose within that relative pitch. There are some freestyles to some instrumentals on here in particular, but I would also have to say there's some quality type songs, despite the fact that Young Buck isn't on terribly many of these. So you do get the 615 type crew as far as that pitch can happen. There's a number of these on here. Pimp C has a pretty good intro on this particular one. He's kind of tough to understand on this particular song on Make It Home, but there are some ones on here. Pimp C is at least a spoken interlude from Pimp C is kind of on here. There's a quality hook from Anthony Hamilton on here. BG's on a song on here. Yo Gotti 2006 era there's a 2006 era Yo Gotti verse on here, so there is some stuff on here in particular. It's just an interesting type concept to get this. This is the sort of stuff that Young Buck was kind of doing, because I didn't realize that Young Buck was trying to put on a crew back in the day. I thought just a subsidiary. It's just interesting that 615 was kind of like a subsidiary of G Unit South. I'd have to suppose. Really, I wonder if they did drop a mixtape or something like that. I'm curious as to whether or not that particularly kind of happened. I just would have to suppose it's interesting enough just to be able to suppose that just question if Young Buck actually had a mixtape with this particular group and put out some club songs and verses and stuff like that, because I definitely would have to check it out. We'll just have to see. I'll have to look it up. That's definitely something. If you look up these particular products on Wikipedia, you can find some information about them. It's surprising that they do actually have articles about them. I'm pretty glad for it, because these are some quality mixtapes here, I'd have to say. So that's a good enough concept. So I'm going to go ahead and recommend. There's 19 songs in this particular mixtape, and out of those 19, I wound up recommending to you 15. So that's actually a pretty super stellar kind of amount. I would say I would definitely almost damn near give this mixtape like a 10 out of 10 if it just would have had songs that wouldn't have been on Chronic 2006, and then on top of that had some songs that would have had Young Buck on there more. There's definitely some ones. I feel like Young Buck should have been on the song Drink and Drive apart from the chorus. I feel like he should have been. There's some other ones on here. I think Peacing Out My Pack would have been a nice song to have had a Young Buck verse on. I'm just surprised that Young Buck didn't drop verses with the 615 crew. It's just kind of a disappointment that that didn't happen, because it definitely would have been pretty awesome to have gotten it that way. I feel like he is. I mean, most of these songs that have the 615 crew on there have like just him on, just kind of have Young Buck on the chorus and that type of stuff. But it's just kind of, I do feel like he probably could have laid a verse on here, just because, I mean, mean, I realized the Young Buck was pretty large at the time, but I definitely think he probably should have been like a Shota, something like that, and kind of done like the groundwork too as far as that pitch can happen, because that's what Tupac did. I mean, Tupac, he didn't just lay the Outlaws crew out and let them rap and then just not rap at all in some of those. I kind of feel like, there were cases where Tupac would drop two verses on a song with the Outlaws, and that was definitely pretty awesome. But Young Buck only does the chorus work. I'm still going to give this mixtape a pretty high score because there's definitely some quality on here. There are some original songs. There are some Young Buck solo songs that work pretty heavily. I'd have to suppose there are a number of immediate ones. I feel like this record, like one of my complaints about Chronic 2006 was it just didn't have that many club type records apart from like the freestyles to other instrumentals. I'd have to say this kind of one is just a lot more of like a thuggish type project and just more rugged, just within that sense of just kind of being like a more southern version of like Tupac's Me Against the World. But it's just kind of the concept. He didn't really cut loose that much on that particular project. He cuts loose a little bit more on this one. But I still would have to say the problem with this one is just the fact that Young Buck's just not on it nearly enough, just compared with all the guests that are kind of on here that are not him. It's just kind of within the context. So that's kind of the thing. But so we'll go ahead and recommend the 15 songs out of 19 I recommend. So the 10 songs I recommend. So the 10 songs I recommend, and then the 5 almost songs. So the 10 songs I recommend would be Work With It, Oh No, Rap Money, Make It Home, Piecing Out My Pack, Still, Let's Ride, I Got Mine, How You Wanna Act, and Drink and Drive. And the 5 almost songs would be I'm a G, Don't Make Me Hurt You, Twisting My Blunt, Thug Until My Death Date, and All By Myself. So the reason why these songs are almost songs is just because of the pitch that they're already on Chronic 2000. The reason why these 5 songs are almost songs is just because they're already on Chronic 2006 as far as that pitch kind of particularly happens with it. But they are some good ones. Like I said, like Stomp That Snitch or I'm a G as it's known in this particular project is a real highlighted one. Young Buck completely shreds this particular verse. That Bone Crusher song I'd have supposed to is a real highlighted one. Twisted My Blunt's a pretty good rap. The 3-6 Mafia Side to Sides, that's a pretty highlighted one. And like Don't Make Me Hurt You is like a little scrappy instrumental. It was a different instrumental back in 2006, but still a pretty quality one to kind of get Tony Ayo and Young Buck on. I'd have to say there's just some good ones on here. Do It Myself is a quality song. Jackal Gold Kick, All By Myself is a pretty quality song. Jackal Gold Kick showed me this song in the past. It's a pretty quality one to get this one in particular. Definitely a pretty quality song. I like the 50 Cent outro on here as well. It's pretty good. It's pretty dope concept to get that one. There's just some nice ones on here. These ones off of Chronic 2006, I definitely recommend downloading Chronic 2006. Has some quality stuff despite the fact that it doesn't have a ton of turn up songs. It does have some quality type stuff. Just like I was saying, a southern kind of version of like Me Against the World by Tupac. I'd have to say just some real kind of rugged type stuff to kind of get within that pitch. Some real summer malaise. So to talk about some of these songs on here, basically Rap Money's a pretty quality one. This is like a bellowing kind of trap rumbler. I'd have to say this is a nice revved up kind of party cut. I would definitely feel like, and this is just some good evening pep. I would definitely have to say, and this is a pretty good kickstart. So I definitely appreciate this one. This is like a quality Young Buck song. I'd have to suppose just within that. This is like a real quality Young Buck song just within that pitch. I'd have to say definitely needed more songs like this on this particular mixtape. This is definitely an immediate one to go for. This is probably one of the mixtape's best beats, and overall just more just kind of Rap Money's a pretty rousing type one to get. Definitely a pretty immediate one just within that pitch to kind of head for just off this particular mixtape. Just a real highlight, I'd have to say, just a real nice one. Drink and Drive is a pretty highlighted one also. This one doesn't have Young Buck on there, but still a pretty nice one to kind of get, just to understand the fact that he's only really on the chorus. But if you can appreciate the 615 crew, it's still pretty nice bop to kind of get within that sense. This is like a Glaze kind of night activity song. I'd have to say it's like a good social outing commerce of a song. I would definitely feel like, and this is just better for like a night stroll. So I recommend, obviously I don't recommend drinking and driving as far as that pitch kind of happens with it, but I would recommend just for like a residential stroll, something like that, just night commerce, things like that, just walking to the gas station, some of those type pitches, just smoking a stogie, something like that. Just kind of a night stroll, just getting some snackage, things like that. It's a real good commerce type tune, just kind of have within that night pitch. Pretty good song to get crunk to, just not within the driving type sense I'd have to suppose, but it is a pretty nice night highlight. It's just really too bad that Young Buck isn't on this particular song, I'd have to say. Work With It's a pretty nice one. This has Yo Gotti on there and the 615 crew, some stuff like that. It's like a peppy kind of typical late day trap fair of a song, I'd have to say. It's like a modest kind of cruise cut, I would definitely feel like, and this is a modest cruise cut, I would definitely feel like, and this is just good for some standard outings, I would have to say, and this is just a pretty solid song. So this really has like a woozy type production on there. It just works pretty well. It's just a pretty vanilla type trap type beat, I would have to suppose. Interesting kind of get this out of Young Buck. I'm glad that he actually laid a verse with the 615 crew on this particular song, and I'm glad that Yo Gotti and All Star were kind of on here. I think All Star was kind of one of Yo Gotti's pals around this time, because I want to say I've seen him on a song with Lil Wayne and Yo Gotti, some of those type pitches as far as that kind of happens. But it's just a nice kind of southern, but Work With It is just a nice kind of southern posse cut, I'd have to say. Just a real nice one to kind of get, just a woozy, peppy type one that just works for some late day kind of trap just within that sense. There's kind of some makeshift songs in here. I feel like there's a couple. I feel like Work With It's kind of a nice one for that. I feel like Make It Home's a particularly nice one. This one's a little bit more malaise, but I do appreciate this one. That's a pretty good pitch for some of those. There's just some ones on here that kind of have some of that pitch. There's another one that's kind of, I'd say Let's Ride is kind of somewhat of a makeshift type song. It's just interesting kind of get some of these on here. And I Got Mine's another nice one for that. So there are some kind of makeshift type tunes just within that relative sense. But I'm going to go ahead and talk about Make It Home is definitely a nice one. Like I was saying, this has Pimp C on the intro as far as that pitch kind of particularly happens with it. It's too bad that he didn't have a verse on here, but Pimp C was pretty busy in 2006, but it's still pretty good concept of a song to get. It's like a malaise kind of evening anguish of a song, I'd have to say. It's like a homely kind of trap cut for like some soul and ruminating, I would definitely say. And this is kind of a makeshift type song, so I definitely appreciate this one. It's a real kind of malaise type one that just works for that relative sense. It's kind of like just a real kind of glum and sullen type trap cut for like a car drive home as far as that pitch kind of has with it. It's a pretty vanilla type one just to kind of get here. It's just like some standard kind of fare and like the production sense of it, but it's just a real nice malaise type one just for like some standard kind of commerce if you're just looking for 2000s trap music just within a makeshift sense. Pretty good concept to get that one in particular. Some real nice night fare would be Oh No. This doesn't have Young Buck on it either, but it's still a pretty nice one. This is like a boiling kind of trap night fare of a song, I'd have to say. This is a good smoke one too, and I would definitely feel like great for some swishers, things like that, I'd have to say. And this is just amidst the activity, I would have to say, and it's a pretty productive song. This is definitely one. This is one where the tasks aren't done. If you have like some night errands to take care of and stuff like that, just night activities kind of get some stuff done, but you're not quite done at like 8:30, 9 p.m. some stuff like that. You're just kind of amidst the night and just things like that, and you've got more things to take care of as far as that pitch happens. This is some good stuff just kind of amongst the activity, just kind of going along with it. Most of the time these are just songs after you get done, but some of these actually, I'm glad that Young Buck kind of had a couple songs on here that are just kind of amongst just like going, just kind of having night activities to kind of have. I've just as if all your tasks aren't necessarily wrapped up by 6:37 p.m. something in that particular pitch. So Oh No is a good song for just night activities, just still having some work at night as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. Piecing Out My Pack's a pretty nice one. This is another one that doesn't have Young Buck on there, but it's a pretty nice bop to kind of get this one. This is like a lively kind of night flash of a song, I'd have to say. This is a great residential smokage fare of a song, I'd have to say, and this is pretty good. And this is a pretty good song for some night owl fun, I'd have to say. So this one and Oh No are two amongst the particular type ones, although I feel like Piecing Out My Pack, yeah, Piecing Out My Pack is a great song to kind of pair up with Oh No as far as that particular pitch kind of has with it. Just a little bit more lively type one, just amongst like the recreational type fare, but these are just some good night ones just kind of have for some evening activities and just overall pitch of just like some liveliness and just kind of frenetic, kind of exhilarating type fare as far as those pitches kind of happen with it. Just some nice ones. It's just once again too bad that Young Buck isn't on a couple of these songs. Still is a pretty highlighted one. Definitely appreciate this one. This is like a haunting kind of basic trap cut, I would have to say. This is just good for some evening activity fare, I would definitely feel like, and this is just amidst kind of the commerce. And this song is just amidst kind of the commerce times, I'd have to say. So this is probably one of the more shrill type ones off this particular project. Definitely like this kind of haunting type pitch. Reminds me of like Jeezy's Trap or Die days, this Thug Motivation 101 type days with some of those more haunting type tunes as far as that pitch kind of happens. Definitely could have used another song like this. I'm glad that still is yet another song that Young Buck isn't on either, but still pretty nice one just to get within that relative pitch. I do appreciate this one. So yeah, Let's Ride with Anthony Hamilton's a pretty nice one. This is like a hazy kind of evening outing fare. This is like some hazy kind of evening outing fare, I'd have to say. This is definitely kind of a summery unwind blazer, I would feel like, and this is just a tasks done kind of mellow turn up of a song, I'd have to say. So this is kind of like a date night type tune, I'd have to say. Pretty good mellow type pitch just to get Anthony Hamilton on this particular song. This has a little bit of commercial fare about it, which I do appreciate because most of this project is really not that commercial. This kind of the aspect. There's a lot of good rumblers on here and stuff like that, but I'd have to say about this particular song is just kind of like a hazy type one, just almost like a promo type song for 2006. There weren't a ton of promo type songs full blown in 2006, but there started to be around this time just within that relative pitch. There kind of were some ones here and there as far as that pitch can have. It's just a good kind of easy. Let's Ride is just kind of a good, easy going kind of step out type tune for like some good outing fare and date night type fare as far as that pitch going. As far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. I mean, this has a serviceable Anthony Hamilton hook, not quite as good as it is on Jadakiss's Why or something like that, but still pretty nice one to kind of get on here. Still pretty nice one to kind of get on here as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it, I'd have to say. Real nice one. This is probably one of the more immediate ones I'd go for, despite the fact that it's not an immediate song in terms of like the format. I feel like songs like Rap Money, Drink and Drive, some of those type ones just hit a little bit heavier right off the bat. Maybe Piecing Out My Pack's another immediate one to kind of go for, despite the fact that some of these just don't have Young Buck on there, but I would still have to say that's still pretty nice one to kind of get. This song does, Let's Ride does have Young Buck on there, so this is a nice highlighted one kind of get for like some evening kind of haze as far as that pitch kind of happens. Just some wind down type fare, some just kind of malaise, kind of just relatively mellow kind of turn up for date night as far as that pitch can happen. So it's a pretty nice one. I Got Mine's a pretty nice track also. This is like a typical kind of trap evening of a song, I'd have to say. This has a lively production times. This song is just some lively kind of productive times, I'd have to say, and this song is just a good late get it done bop, I'd have to say. Yeah, I got mine as just a typical kind of evening trap cut, I'd have to say. This says BG on there. This is like the sort of stuff that T.I., Manny Fresh, some of those type folks were doing mid-late 2000s as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. BG feels right at home on this particular song. This is just a basic kind of vanilla trap cut just within that particular sense. This real kind of typical kind of trap type beat just within that sense of like 2000s type fare. I'd have to suppose pretty nice one just kind of get. Substandard type one, not really like, it's not like a bad song, but it's just kind of just regular kind of evening fare just within that pitch. Typical kind of mixtape cut, I'd have to say. Pretty good bop to kind of get. But I do feel like there's some more immediate type songs on this project that actually don't have Young Buck on there that do better than this song. I got mine, I'd have to say. So it's pretty good concept to get that, but still, that's kind of the concept. So How You Want to Act is another nice one. This is like a refined kind of summer evening pep of a song, I'd have to say. It's like a vanilla turn up type song for some thrilling outing times, I'd have to say, and it's just a pretty dope song. I do like some of the refined evening malaise of this particular song, How You Want to Act. This reminds me of like a movie like Desperado or something like that, just within that relative pitch of just like some 2000s type fare, just really refined. This song just has a real refined and graceful type feel overall, just within that pitch, I'd have to suppose. Pretty nice one to kind of get. This feels like a West Coast type production just within that particular type fare, I'd have to suppose, with it. So yeah, it's some nice ones. So those are the songs I basically recommend on here. The 10 songs out of 19 I recommend, plus the 5 almost songs that I'd say. So talk about the songs briefly that I don't recommend. Basically, some of these just had some poor productions on here. Unfortunately, some of these ones were just some Young Buck songs that he just didn't really nail it on. Young Buck was just not quite as captivating on songs like Prepare for War and Niggas Chain, some of those type ones. I mean, they were trying to be like some kind of extra character type ones, but they just didn't pull it off quite as well, especially in like the production type fare. Definitely think he needed more songs like some of his biggest. I mean, around this time, Young Buck only really had one album, and his biggest song at that particular time was just Shawty Wanna Ride, but he just didn't really have that many hits to kind of back that particular type. I definitely feel like he could have used some mixtape cuts that kind of were on the vibes of Shawty Wanna Ride and Let Me In, and some of those type ones, just some of those particular type pitches, and even Stomp, something like that. Some of his biggest songs off of Straight Outta Cashville kind of feel like there just were kind of some in between type songs that just didn't pull out the vibe. Same thing with Come On, that was just kind of a poor type one. It's a short song, but it just didn't really nail it at all, I'd have to say. And Heavenly Father was just kind of an awkward one that just didn't really have like a good production type fare on that one in particular, I'd have to suppose. So it's just kind of the concept. The thing about this particular project is it does have some immediate song. The thing about this particular project is it does have some gems on here, but not all the immediate ones that you would go for right away are like the ones that have Young Buck on there. Like I definitely feel like songs like Drink and Drive. I feel like songs like Still, Piecing Out My Pack, Drink and Drive, and Oh No. These are some highlights. Have ones that are some immediate ones to kind of go for, but some of these best productions on here just don't have Young Buck on there apart from the chorus, which is just kind of a mismanagement of just songs that probably could have showcased Young Buck a lot better as well. I mean, he kind of put on a crew and did a pretty good job with it. It's just kind of the concept that he just didn't give himself enough shine to kind of have that. Now, I'm still going to give this mixtape a relatively high score. I just would have to say that some of these immediate ones, this is something to keep in mind that they don't have Young Buck on there. So I would have to say that songs like Rap Money and Let's Ride are some of the best songs on this particular. I would have to say that songs like Rap Money, Let's Ride, and How You Want to Act are some immediate type songs to go for that have Young Buck on there just within that particular pitch. But there's not a huge assortment of these. So in how I'm going to rank this particular album, me recommending 15 songs out of 19. But the fact of the matter is that's 10 songs that are. But the fact of the matter is that's 10 songs out of 19 that are not to be found anywhere else. And then out of the songs that are just only Young Buck, I'm not gonna. And then out of the 10 songs I recommend, how many of those are songs that Young Buck actually lays a verse on, which is not a super ton of those, I'd have to suppose. So I'm going to go ahead and give this mixtape me recommending 10 out of 19 plus the 5 almost songs, which would be kind of pseudo 15 out of 19. I'm going to go ahead and give this mixtape like an 8.75 out of 10. I'm going to give this mixtape like an 8.75 out of 10. I feel like that's pretty solid enough. I definitely feel like the concept of it's a pretty nice mixtape to kind of get this one in particular. It's just not that full-blown immediate just because of the fact that Young Buck is not on a ton of these songs on here. He kind of advertises like the 615 crew a lot more. He kind of advertises the 615 crew and not the full-blown best way, I would have to suppose. This is kind of a disappointing concept within that pitch because he definitely should have laid a verse in some of these particular type songs. I'd have to say it's just kind of a concept that just didn't really have the much affable type pitch as far as that kind of happens with it. I would almost give this project a 9, but that's kind of the concept as to why I wasn't getting that, I'd have to say. But still some good stuff on here. It does have some immediate ones. It's kind of like a haphazard kind of Gangsta Grills tape just because you get more of like the 615 crew more so than full-blown Young Buck, especially if you slash some of the songs that are also on Chronic 2006. It's good enough, I'd have to say, but it just Normally, a song that I like this many songs would probably get like a 9, 9.5 out of 10, something within that pitch. But I'm just kind of slacking the score just because it's somewhat of a slack mix. This is somewhat of a slack mixtape just because some of this can be found elsewhere and some of this just doesn't. Because some of this can be found elsewhere and some of this just doesn't have Young Buck on there just within that relative pitch, I'd have to say. So that's the concept of it. The social score I'm going to go ahead and give. That's kind of tricky. I think I'll go ahead and give this social score like an 8.5 out of 10 because I feel like there's some quality on here. It's just kind of the fact that there's not really a full blown kind of nightclub type song. There's definitely some residential smoking type tunes and some step out type fare just within a relative sense. There is some makeshift kind of evening malaise in songs like Let's Ride and Make It Home and some of those type ones. A little bit of work with it, some of those particular type ones. So there is a decent amount of makeshift on here just within a relative pitch. There's some good kind of night traverse and stuff like that. Just some residential kind of get snackage, smokage, some hangout type songs. But once again, this is another mixtape that's kind of light on like the nightclub type moments and overall just sheer festivities like Shoddy Wanna Ride or Get Buck or some of those type ones that definitely could have been a pretty good pitch to kind of help promote this particular project. Just kind of somewhat of a disappointment. Not full. I mean, I give this project like an 8.5 and an 8.75 score, but I would just have to say is this the concept that just the turn up is just relatively kind of discombobulated to the point where you just don't get the full blown expression that you really need for some craziness. It's just kind of more it's just kind of more organized type crazy. It's just kind of more organized type manicness that just kind of has. It's just kind of like you get more of like Me Against the World Tupac on here, and you want All Eyes on Me Tupac, and that's just kind of the pitch. Because I feel like songs like I'm a G off this particular project, which is also known as Stomp That Snitch, is still one of the best songs on this particular project. I'd say just needed more songs like that. Definitely something like Shoddy Wanna Ride, like I was saying before, just within those pitches, just to get Young Buck at his craziest and just overall just nightclub type fare. There are some ones on here that have the 615 crew that kind of do it just within a night sense and smokage sense, but there's just not anything with like a full blown kind of club type craziness that's just like a complete 10 out of 10 turn up classic, I'd have to say. So this is kind of the concept. But 8.75 score, 8.5 socials. So in terms of the future, like Young Buck has a ton more mixtapes I'm going to have to get to just within that relative pitch. I do want to review his third album, The Rehab, as far as that pitch kind of has with it. There's definitely some more stuff to get to. I don't know how recent he's dropped projects, at least up to 2020, 2021, something like that, I'd have to suppose. But this is pretty quality stuff here, I would have to say. It's just the fact that it's not full blown immediate, lacks a nightclub song, doesn't have Young Buck on here a whole bunch. But I would have to say, despite all that, it still manages to come out being a pretty quality mixtape here, and I do recommend it quite a bit.